still acknowledging the accolades that are coming her way and speaking to people and trying to get together. But I think the most important thing, and not having been governor, and not having been lieutenant governor, she's going to have to acclimate herself to picking the right people. And so the question now is, do you pick the campaign people that helped you get elected, or do you get people who maybe didn't be out front helping you, but who are adept and who are good in performance to whatever degree you'd like them to perform, whether it's in transportation, whether it's in home housing, whether it's education. And I think education is key, and it will be key. And this is one of the things I spoke with her about when I did have a chance to chat with her.
And although it's 2025, do you think that there will be people that will doubt her ability to lead just based off of the fact that this is a first, she is the first female governor? Will she pick that up, or will it be sort of just another byproduct of sort of partisan identity?
There might be a few who might doubt it, but the majority will be not doubting it as such, but questioning whether she's going to do it and how she's going to do it. In other words, what is going to be her modus operandi? How is she going to perform as it relates to handling the money? That's always the first thing that politics is concerned with. That's my one-word definition of politics is money. And when you consider where we are in America today as it relates to money, rising cost of education, rising health care, housing, all of it, transportation. And so people are going to be wondering and waiting to see what is going to be your approach. One of the things that came out of the election last night, people haven't focused on it yet, was almost a Trump-dominated issue. In other words, that there was such animosity towards Trump that people were saying, we'll vote for anybody but Trump. But that transcends to the current governor. You didn't hear anyone say, except I think one time Winston Sears said something like, we want to keep excellence going on. What? So the real issue is that the Republicans were not able to identify any issues that had been followed through to any degree by Youngkin that they could say, we want to do this that Youngkin has done in transportation or in housing or in education, etc. So many people are going to be watching to see what is going to be her charted course and where will it start and who are you going to get to do it.
Based off of that, that sort of line of logic, because there was such a swing left this last night and the last 45 days of early voting, do you think that that's a reflection more so on, because Governor Youngkin has actually maintained pretty
rigid.
Yeah, he has maintained he's maintained approval ratings that are performing above Trump, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm curious.
Well, that doesn't say a whole lot.
Yes, I'm curious if you think that the shift left is a reflection on Virginians rejecting Sears as a candidate, or it's more of a reflection on rejecting the Trump administration.
I think it's a combination, but I don't think there was a shift left. I think there was a shift to stay moderate as it relates to the issues. I used to call Virginia a blue state rather than red, and I changed from that. Now I don't think, and then I started thinking it to be a purple state. I changed from that. What I think now is that Virginia is a people's state. And people are not wedded to party to the extent that I've got to follow the line. Wait a minute, what's in it for us? What are we going to get? What are my kids going to get? And we are past race discrimination to the degree of political denial. Will there still be those who think we're so far above it that we don't need to discuss it? That's one of the Youngkin proposals, that DEI.
Yeah.
Silly. I tried to tell him that DEI is something that you need to understand. Law and equity. They were the courts that we had in Richmond and across the state. Chancery courts were that we had in Great Britain. So the law is one thing. What equity is means the enforcement of the law. Is it fair? Is it wrong? You question it. And then inclusion. Everybody needs to be included, and I think Virginia showed that last night.
Why do you think Sears did not do better with black voters?
Because she had no program. She had no issues. She was saying, let's keep excellence going on. I talked with her when she came to see me, and she was saying things like, well, you know, you were lieutenant governor, I'm lieutenant governor. I was in the Senate, you were in the Senate. You were in the military, I was in the Marines. So do you have any idea of some of the things that I did when I was in the Senate? It took me 8 years to get a bill for Martin Luther King passed. I had to put the bill in to have compulsory school attendance so kids wouldn't be staying out on the street. It took me a great number of years to do any numbers of kinds of things. In addition to that, I always focused on money, the rainy day fund. The money that Youngkin is going to be taking now to address the shortfalls in education, where's that money coming from? The rainy day fund that I created. And so I listened to her. And at the time I was listening to her, I was in the home of someone who was considering giving her some big bucks. And he was there too, listening. And so afterwards, I don't think that it was a positive reaction. So it's a good question you asked, because if I had to return the question to you and ask you, name one issue that she brought up that you can identify with as saying that it was good and novel and that she wanted to pursue it.
I know that you started your campaign announcement in Lee County, correct?
That's correct.
And I only bring that up because you are someone that knows, you know, the importance of appealing to a rural vote.
Right.
And tying that into the fact that yesterday we saw, although rural counties and localities still went Republican, Spanberger outperformed even Kamala Harris in those localities.
Yes.
And I'm curious if you think that is reflective, if that speaks to anything about expectations or anticipation for the midterm elections, the ability to outperform typically red areas in the upcoming midterm elections, presidential elections to come. I mean, is that something that people should note moving forward as Spanberger's performance?
Well, I think it's a good observation that you make, but the thing that I understood that it was necessary to go out there myself. Many people underestimated the importance of that vote. And for the Southwest, to most Virginians, Roanoke is it. They don't go past Lee, Washington, Botetourt, anything further down. So I didn't just go there to get votes. I wanted to learn the people. So I didn't stay in hotels, no motels. I stayed only in the homes of the people. And I listened to them and how their children were going to school.
Governor-elect Spanberger will step in just a couple months with both chambers under Democratic control. So in theory, it should be a pretty streamlined process for Democrats to push forward an agenda, push forward legislation. But we are still under a Republican administration nationally in the White House. So I'm curious what you think her biggest challenges will be throughout not just the first year of her administration maybe, but the tenure of her, 4 years in office. What will be, do you think, her biggest challenge with the current political landscape that we have?
Money. And I started with that. If you notice, I'll stay with that because there's nothing that you can speak to issue-wise that is not involving money. When I lecture to classes here, and the students, they say, "Oh, I got something," then they try. Then we finish discussing it. And there's nothing you can discuss. Now, is there a disparity? Is the amount of money being allocated in some areas that are not others? Are businesses locating to be able to provide jobs for people in the state? Getting rid of this north-south division as it relates to the thinking of people, that's a continuing challenge. And to the extent that the money that comes is appropriately spread, and then getting the right people around you, that's not the easiest thing to do. Some of the people that helped you in the campaign, who might be great for getting elected, but what about administrative ability? What about them being in positions where they got to listen to somebody? And what about the delegation of authority? And then who supervises that? So whomever is next to the governor, there's got to be somebody that's got it together, because that person will have somebody next to him or her. And so you can't really delegate the authority of the governorship. That begins and rests with the governor. Then when Holton put the first cabinet together in Virginia, we didn't have a cabinet before I cast a deciding vote in the Senate to create the cabinet. My Democratic colleagues didn't like that vote. But you didn't have a Secretary of Transportation, a Secretary of Agriculture, none of it. It was just one person, and that was the authority of the Chief Administrative Officer to the governor. So I think fairness, equity, and money, you'll never be able to escape the need for the addressing of not just the equality of distribution, but the smartness of it. I was left broke. As you know, I was left with $35 million to run the state.
House Speaker Scott had a press conference earlier today. He had mentioned that, as you know, it wasn't just statewide sweep, but it was plus 13 seats in the House of Delegates. So I'm curious, and he said that last night was a pathway, or it showed the country a pathway for the Democratic Party to win elections moving forward. And I'm curious what you think of that, because we didn't just have Virginia's elections, but we also had the New York City mayoral election, which many are, sort of contrasting Mr. Mamdani and sort of his brand as a progressive versus Spanberger's kind of branding in her campaign that she was, seen as a very bipartisan person, someone that can work across the aisle. I'm curious if what you think of Don Scott's comments that Virginia has showed a pathway for the Democratic Party, in contrast to the other elections we've seen.
I agree with it, and he and I have a very good relationship, and we talk regularly. And he's a student of government and as well as politics. I think that people in looking to Virginia can look upon it as somewhat of a model. As I said earlier, the fact that they might vote Republican doesn't mean it's a red state. The fact that it votes Democrat doesn't mean it's a blue state. Some places you can just put a peg in. But I think what this demonstrates with the numbers of seats that they'll pick up, Democrats would be in a position to show and determine why they should be continued in office for a period of time. The problem is getting the right candidates, getting the right people to offer. And I think that won't be difficult in terms of the numbers of people, but quality. And so if the Democrats go about continuing what they're doing in terms of saying that we want to involve all people, we don't not reach across the aisle, don't recognize that there's an aisle. And you talk with the House, you talk with the Senate, you talk with the cabinet heads, you talk with everybody. But more importantly, stay in touch with the people on a regular basis, or on a reporting basis. this is where we are, this is what we're doing, and this is what we want to do.
The Democrats win last night, right?
No question.
What about Republicans? What's next for them here in the state? What is next for them?
They've got to organize. They've got to come to, and they've got to recognize reality. They've got to recognize what they didn't do, what they did wrong, and then determine how they can get it back together. As I said earlier, I tried to help Glenn Youngkin. I think I helped him get elected. But I don't think he really wanted to ever recognize that. On the other hand, they need to recognize the value of education and how you go about it, and to the extent of not just reaching across the aisle, but making certain that you stay in touch with where the people are. If you had to go out and ask somebody, and I did ask someone earlier today, what was the Republican message for yesterday? I haven't heard it yet. And I heard what the Democratic message was, anti-Trump. But not just anti the individual, anti the things that they thought that he was in the way of: housing, education, policy, money, again. And so I think if the Republicans are smart, they won't consider this just a temporary setback. They would need to regird for the future.